Good morning. There we go. And welcome everybody. If you're just joining us, we're about to get started, and so we're grateful for your time and your presence, and we will value that by starting in just a moment. But it's great to see people here today, and what a joy to connect Thursday morning. Have an opportunity to really start out our Thursday well. And if you're just joining now, welcome, of course. Go turn that off. That thing keeps making noise. Anyone here get just overwhelmed by notifications sometimes, and you just have to turn them off for a long time and just go on silent and just get your brain back a little bit? I don't know if I'm the only one, you know.
Mhm.
So hey, Kimberly, great to see you, and Dr. Wanda, TK. We do have the recording on just for from an awareness perspective. I'm sure you can all see that, and so we do want to welcome you all to our Flourishing Workplace USA webinar for the month of September. It's late in September, so you could almost think that this is preparation for October. And as they say, we're right into the middle of the Burr months, September, October, November, December. And didn't that happen fast? I mean, we just kind of blinked. It was last I remembered, it was January 1st, 2025. How many of you know what I'm talking about? And I woke up somehow in September, but there's a lot of songs about September. I won't try to sing them to you today because we're talking about flourishing, not about re-traumatization here today with my singing first thing in the morning. But it's always nice just to open up with just some roundtable introductions. And so it'd just be kind of cool if you wouldn't mind just letting us know your name and where you're sort of dialing in from today, and just kind of what you're hoping to get out of today. And so why don't we start actually with one of our leads here, and that's Dr. Wanda Walker. Please go ahead.
Yes, I'm Dr. Wanda Walker. I'm a leadership and relationship coach. And oddly enough, when I say that, I like to show people what's the nexus between the two. You can't just lead, you have to be relational, and when communicating with people. And like Abe said, I'm actually one of the flourishing coaches, and I'm delighted with the materials and with the leadership. Thank you so much, Abe.
Thanks, Dr. Wanda. And maybe we could hear from TK and then Kimberly.
Good morning, everyone. This is TK Mason from San Diego, California, and I'm focused on a survival coach. Not in the wilderness, although I can survive in the wilderness. It's where I like to focus on wellness and mindset and how to become more resilient in the workplace. If we're battling some kind of illness, we all know we're going to get sick and we all know we need to work. So how do the two synergies work together? And that's what I'm about. And I'm super happy that everyone's here today.
Thank you. And Kimberly.
Hi, yeah, my name's Kimberly, and I'm from Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, and I'm just getting back into the coaching business and trying to refresh everything. My focus is really on helping people, kind of setting them free. For me, for the longest time, I was always stuck and not knowing what to do and where to go. So that's kind of my focus is to help people to get unstuck and start living the life that they want to start living.
That's so good. And Kimberly and I have known each other for a long time, eh, Kimberly? Do you
Yeah.
remember what year we met?
2013-ish, give or take.
2013.
Yeah.
And what a joy. I actually remember meeting you, and we did some training together back there in a hotel meeting room. I was that either Calgary or was that Prince Albert? I think that was
That
Calgary, wasn't
was Calgary.
it? Yeah.
Calgary at the in the south. I can't remember the name of it, but anyways, in the south.
Yeah.
That the
Calgary
hotel.
Delta
Yeah.
South. Yeah, I
That's
did.
it.
I did a lot of training there, and it's so great to stay connected all these years. And
Yeah.
of course, 2013. I mean, think of wow, all the things that have happened since 2013.
A
all
lot.
of the changes. I mean, it's just mind-boggling, but here we are still connected. And so
Yeah.
really grateful for, those of you who could make it today. And of course, appreciating the fact that not everybody could be here right now, but the recording is made available, and that's why we do have it. Today, we want to talk, as you can tell on the screen, about something that is, it should be simple, but I'm going to suggest that in practice it's hard. I'm going to use my own life a little bit as an example of that. So we're going to talk about everything you wish leaders knew about self-awareness. And I think we would all agree with this statement that self-awareness is the superpower of great leadership. I would say the reason I say I'll use myself as an example, I mean, it's always good to be the donkey rather than pointing the finger at others. And there's been a remarkable amount, truly remarkable amount of my leadership that has been startlingly lacking in self-awareness. And I would say that one of the benefits of maybe wisdom and having coaches and maybe even aging and maturing is that you develop a greater sense of self-awareness, right? And you not only start to see it as a requirement, but you begin to see it as a superpower. It's a competitive advantage. And that's because research shows that leaders, and we're here for Flourishing Workplace, and so here in Flourishing Workplace, we're thinking about leaders, we're thinking about teams, we're thinking about collaborative ecosystems. And research shows that leaders with higher self-awareness drive stronger team performance, better engagement, and healthier workplace cultures. And so to me, that's a competitive advantage, yet only about 10 to 15% of people are actually self-aware. And nearly 95% think they are. And I would say even for leaders, it might even be higher. And I think partially that's because as leaders, we are so others focused. We're focused on the team, we're focused on the growth, we're focused on the health of the organization. And in some ways, we can sort of give ourselves a pass. Well, I don't have to, Abe doesn't have to really think about Abe or be self-aware about Abe because Abe is so busy being, connected and socially intelligent about everyone else rather than being emotionally intelligent about where I'm at. And so, what we want to try to talk about today is kind of this concept. I mean, what could change in most workplaces if leaders, including me, including perhaps you, were even 10% more aware of how their words, actions, and energy could impact others? I mean, what could happen? I think a miracle could happen. And so we're going to talk a bit about that. And what kind of miracle are we describing here? Well, we're talking a lot about workplace culture. And we've already seen that, self-aware leaders create healthier workplace cultures. And so companies with a strong corporate culture, according to Harvard, actually see a 4 times increase in revenue growth compared to companies with a weak culture. And 47% of organizations who have a successful company culture see significant revenue increases. And so, this workplace culture thing, this self-awareness thing, which helps and supports and builds healthy workplace culture, it is a competitive advantage. It's a business advantage. So I want to try to be really simple today. I'm a big fan of simplicity. I think that's because I do tend to make simple things complex, and so I'm always trying to bring myself back to a place of simplicity. And let's just describe. I'm going to do my best, anyways, to describe 3 practical ways to grow self-awareness. The first is to pause. Now, if you're on this call today or listening to this recorded later and you're trying to figure out, like, how can I become more self-aware? Abe, you've made the case. It's important to do that. How do I do it? Well, the first is just to stop from time to time. Now, not a full stop. Notice the word is pause. And so this isn't, come to a screeching halt, but it's more so pausing and slowing down. We need to find a way to create reflective space. You see, you can't change what you can't see. And I think, in our culture today, go, 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 we just don't have time to reflect. We don't have time to meditate. We don't have time to kind of step back and look at how we're really doing. And this is fatal because the brain's default mode network activates when we slow down. So you might say, well, what is the brain's default mode network? Well, that is where the narrative in our mind is running 24/7. And so there's a default mode network in your brain where it's like this narrative that's going on all the time. It's that internal dialogue, it's that internal conversation. And the truth is, if you want to activate that default mode network in the positive, what you have to do is slow down because that's where insight and perspective can emerge. And so, what does this look like? Well, this looks like just building in regular pauses. Maybe it's journaling. Maybe it's mindful breathing. Maybe it's taking 2 minutes to reflect between meetings. Maybe you're a person of prayer. Maybe it's you sitting down and putting a few notes in your journal. But the idea is rather than just rushing from one thing to the next, back to back to back to back to back meetings, it's I can't stop the meetings necessarily. Maybe I don't even want to. But imagine how much more self-awareness would come if we just in between the meetings built in just a 2 minute margin just to allow for that self-awareness to come. See, leaders who pause respond rather than react. And what that means is they are reducing emotional contagion, right? Rather than spreading the negative emotion from the last meeting into the next one, or kind of carrying that story throughout your day. What you're allowing yourself to do is just reduce that. I don't want to be an emotional contaminant to you. We all bring an energy with us, and so I want to take some time to pause and reflect on that. And then, of course, along the way, that will also improve psychological safety. Now, I want to open it up for some discussion in just a moment, but let me just share with you two more practical ways because I'd love to get your insights on this. I'm not the be all and end all, that's for sure. And you'll have some insights, I have no doubt. The second thing is to probe. And so if I start with a pause, one of the next steps would be to move into a probe, and that is to seek honest feedback. Here's the thing. Self-awareness grows in the mirror of community. You don't know what you don't know. And we've all been in situations where we don't know what we don't know. And so getting feedback from others allows us to start to know what we don't know through the powerful and safe lens of connection and community. Did you know that teams with feedback rich environments are 31% more productive and have higher trust scores? I mean, man, if you had told me I did an MBA at one of the top business schools here in Canada, the top 10 business schools in our whole country, they never mentioned that. Okay, so let me just say they had a lot of things about how to improve profit and how to, juice your supply chain and how to make sure your accounting was correct and followed international accounting standards and all of these things. But what about just, hey, Abe, you're going to be leading organizations. Here's how you create a feedback rich environment. Most of my classmates would have laughed if a professor had said that, because it's so antithetical to the sort of the capitalist business mind. No disrespect to the capitalist business mind, but the reality is that the ROI of a feedback rich environment, that's really high. 31% more productive. Holy cow. That's you working with massive levels of caffeine. Okay, like that's you with a Monster Energy drink in one hand and a big mug of coffee in the other. I mean, 31% productivity just by being open to feedback. You see, here's the problem. The problem is feedback is something that we need to invite. It's not, people, I think at their core, not everybody, of course, we've all there's always exceptions to the rule, but at their core, especially in a professional environment, they are polite. They're not going out of their way to offend. Of course, we all have worked with the narcissist who's the opposite of this, but that person is the exception rather than the rule. Most people won't just give you feedback unless you invite it. And that's because they're trying to be polite, they're trying to be professional, they want to operate from a place of kindness. And so imagine if we started inviting feedback from colleagues, team members, and even customers. And here's a couple of things you could ask. I mean, the first one you think you could ask is how did my leadership land with you, or how does my leadership land with you? But another thing you could ask is, what's one thing I could do better to support you? This is really important because you could be the greatest leader of all time, and I have no doubt that you're awesome. But what makes leadership powerful is when leadership becomes personal. And so that means, I have a member of my team named Cynthia, and I have another member of my team named Marcia. Cynthia has different needs than Marcia. And so if I just assume, well, you're both women, you both work on my team, like, therefore you must be the same, uh, that would just be really ignorant on my part. And so when you ask the question as a leader, what's one thing I could do to better support you? Now my leadership becomes powerful because my leadership just became personal. I understand that Cynthia needs something different. She's going to answer that question differently than Marcia. And I want to make sure as a leader that I'm giving her that personal connection. And of course, we understand that that then will create much greater business outcomes. Feedback creates a loop of learning, right? It builds humility. And boy, I mean, I could use more of that. And it also creates a greater dynamic of emotional intelligence. So just one more little practical way to grow self-awareness, and then please, just I hope you have your comments ready, your questions ready, your feedback ready, because I'd love to hear it. I think the third thing is just to practice. If I'm going to create self-awareness, number one, I start with a pause. And then I want to probe and get some feedback. But then, you know as well as I do that until something hits us at the level of our habits, our daily routines, it's not going to stick. We want this self-awareness thing to be sticky. What do they say? Even in the business world, they say, how do you create more Velcro in your relationships with your customers? How do you create more sticky customers? And that's the idea of longevity. And so practice is the key. Habits. Here's the truth is that awareness without action is just observation. And so, consistent, what they tell us, the neuroscientists, is that consistent small behaviors rewire the brain through neuroplasticity. Consistent, small. Okay, so this is not you taking the world on your back and saving the planet. This is you just doing something consistently, doing it small. And what ends up happening is the brain itself then begins to shed the old neural pathways that are no longer being activated, that are no longer serving you, and it begins to rewire new neural pathways. And so what if you just chose one growth area, right? What if you just said, okay, I'm gonna pick communication. Okay, how I'm communicating, both how I'm speaking and sharing my thoughts and how I'm listening and understanding your thoughts. What if you picked emotional intelligence, right? What if maybe you just picked how present you are in relationships, and so just choose one, and then I would really encourage you just to track it daily. That's how we make this practical. We can't just throw this concept called self-awareness at the wall and hope that it sticks. What we need to do is really say, okay, is there one thing that I can really lean into, even for the next couple of weeks? Maybe in a couple of weeks, then you throw something else into the mixture. It's not different from self-awareness, right? Because these things on the screen, just as examples, communication, emotional regulation, and presence, these things are components of self-awareness. But what that allows you to do is make that self-awareness thing practical. You see, modeling growth creates a culture where development is normalized and encouraged. Imagine if we just had that, right? Imagine, I mean, an environment, a culture where development is normalized and encouraged. Wow, imagine that in government. Imagine that in your local nonprofit. Imagine that in your local charity. Imagine that in the local business. Imagine that in the McDonald's down the street. Imagine that wherever you are. Just a culture where development, growth, constant improvement, it's normalized and encouraged. I mean, imagine the McDonald's down the street. If every time you went in there, something got better, right? Rather than every time you go in there, the prices go up a little bit, or they ran out of this, or they ran out of that. And I'm not picking on McDonald's, just using them because, of course, they're a popular example. But imagine if every time you went into that local business, some little tweak, some little improvement was happening. Imagine every time you went into your government office, there was some little tweak or improvement. I mean, boy, that would be so much better, right? You see, things don't get better until things get better. And how do things get better? Through small, consistent improvements. You see, I want to conclude by saying this. When leaders pause, probe, and practice, they don't just become more self-aware. They create workplaces where trust thrives, performance rises, and people feel truly seen. So here's my question. One way that you can pause, probe, or practice this week? It's just something to think about. And I'd love to just pause, like actually pause now, and hear from some of you about a couple of your takeaways from today, or comments that you might have, or even if you had questions. I mean, we're very happy to take some time with that as well. So just unmute your mic and fire away.
Well, Abe, I think this is really powerful. From the pause, I find that I have to do mine without noise. I have to quiet myself and anything around me because otherwise I can't go, reflect inside of myself if there's distractions on the outside. And probably the probe is the one that you can be most tenuous.
Mm.
Picking someone who knows you well is not just taking a snapshot of your day or a particular meeting or whatever. They know you well inside and out. And the power from that comes when you actually make the change. Someone comments that, during a particular meeting, you seem to be accusatory or, something else that's negative. Your intent when you put the meeting together in your head was really positive. But the way the delivery actually occurred, what was said or was intended to be said was not what was heard. And so to go back and either apologize, which would be absolutely powerful to see a leader apologize for something they've done in error, but to make sure you don't do it again. So I love this practice, and believe it or not, self-awareness is the step back of those relationships. Once you know what in yourself needs to be changed, buffed, or polished, then you can go out to relate to others.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. And it's a hard one, isn't it? It's a very hard one. So thank you for that. And anyone else, love to just hear your thoughts on this.
When I think of pausing, to be, I like to take it one step further to PR. And that's like, we need to pause, but we also need to start recording what our thoughts are at that moment. So if things aren't changing, it's good to pause, but then how are we capturing those thoughts? And it may seem silly, but on a number of occasions, I'll just sit there and make, whether it's every minute, every 5 minutes, I'll write down for an hour. What am I doing? What's my thought process at right now? What am I thinking? And or even after a meeting to sit down and be like, okay, what thoughts were coming through my head? Because a lot of times people are visual and you can't see it or recognize it until you see it in front of your own face. And if you give yourself even just an hour and write down what was the thoughts, it's pretty powerful because you'd be like, whoa, I didn't think that. I wasn't thinking that. Or I got distracted and then where did my thought process go back to? So I like a little bit of PR with my pause.
Yeah, I love that. It's so good. Thank you. Very good. Anyone else? Yeah, go ahead, Kimberly.
Yeah, I like this. It's something that I really need to get more self-awareness into myself. The pausing, that's something that I'm kind of trying to get myself into that pausing and reflecting. And one of the things that I know I'm kind of weak in is the probing. I don't like to ask people. to, to tell me things about myself. So I know that that's something I really need to open up, and I do see the value in the feedback that I will get.
Mm,
So that is an area I'm going to pursue a little bit more. Maybe this week, maybe reach out to a few people and get some feedback on that.
mhm,
The consistent habits, this is great because it falls right in with the 75 high performance challenge. As I'm going through it, I'm not perfect, obviously,
mm,
but it does make me aware, and I'm consciously thinking about what I'm going to be doing for the day to incorporate some habits that I need to get into my everyday life.
mm.
So I'm enjoying that challenge. I haven't been posting, but I'm struggling, and I just keep at it every day. But I know by the end of the 75 days, I will have some form of a habit where I've incorporated everything that I need to have in my life to go forward for what I want to do. But yeah, I really like this teaching today. It's great.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Kimberly. Yeah, I think it's an interesting to talk about like the side of probe. I mean, the pause and the practice. I wouldn't say they're easy, but those are things that I have to do within myself. But when you start to probe and ask for feedback, now you're actually inviting a different level of vulnerability. And I think if we're honest, we've had bad experiences in that area as well, right? And so we don't want to be too hard on ourselves, but I like what you said, Kimberly, and it's this idea that find a couple of safe people, right? These aren't like just random, coworkers who you just met and never really had any relationship with besides just showing up at a job, but actually maybe people who have been mentoring you, people who have been watching you, people who have been supporting you. Those are the ones that you really, I think, want to probe with. It's not that you shouldn't be open to feedback from others, but I don't want to expose myself to somebody who also may not be safe for me. Life is hard enough already, and so just finding that balance. I think the challenge for a lot of people is trying to figure out, well, who then is safe for me? And what I would say is, people who have a motivation to benefit you, So much of the feedback that you get in the professional environment is from somebody who may feel threatened or may, not want to see you progress for their own reasons. And so, I think that's feedback from somebody, like a coach, like a mentor, like a senior executive who is really kind of watching, your back a little bit and regularly asking those people because you know what you're going to get there is gold. High quality feedback as opposed to sort of the random musings of somebody whose Starbucks didn't come out properly today and might be trying to protect their own position, right? We've all had that. And so don't feel bad, friends, if you're not asking every Tom, Dick, and Harry for feedback. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of wisdom in that, but find a couple of people who are worthy of that and then ask them. But make sure you find someone. That's the key, right? So, kind of as we conclude, I'd love to just, encourage you all to consider taking the next step. And you're like, what's the next step? Well, join the conversation. Next time we have one of these Flourishing Workplace webinars, we have another one next month. Bring a colleague if you can. But way more important than that is just you out there, you and I, having the conversation. Today, we talked about self-awareness, building a flourishing workplace. And, truthfully, I will say we believe in workplaces where everyone thrives, where everyone belongs, and where everyone can contribute. A flourishing workplace, we don't just care about your business or your organization, we actually care a lot about you. And it may not be a fit for you, and that's okay too. But you may want to hop on to a discovery call, or, in that discovery call, one thing we will do is provide a detailed roadmap with you. And potentially, if you would like, we'll even walk with you to implement. But at least what you have is all the tools that you need. And so our URL, our website, if you're interested, is flourishingworkplace.com. Of course, you can find us on LinkedIn and lots of other places as well. But thank you everybody for your shares today. Thank you for your presence, and let's make sure we do our best at an individual level to develop that self-awareness. Does that sound okay? Right on. Okay, everybody, take care. Have a great rest of your day.